Welcome back to the Artie Lange Show. As you know, crazy stuff's going on at Rutgers University, and we're big supporters of Rutgers, big supporters of Tim Pernetti, the AD there. And Mike Rice officially got fired today amidst a crazy situation and accusations that are not accusations at all, actual abuse that went on. And we want to get the latest from Joey Wahler once again. It was great yesterday in filling us in. Joey, welcome back to the show. What's up, man?
Hey, Artie. How are you, man?
So, Joe, let's hear the latest on your end. I mean, what's the last you heard? Obviously, Mike Rice is gone. What? First of all, I saw that Rice, he's got nothing to say but do a mea culpa here after everything that's come out.
Right.
What do you think Mike Rice's future is, real quick, before I get into Pernetti? Do you think Mike Rice is ever going to coach again?
You know, it's always easy to say never when these guys do these outlandish things, but, we've seen other guys resurface, maybe not with anything that seems quite as heinous as this, but I think it's the old cliche, you never say never, because the fact is that he is a well-liked guy. I know that Brett Stover even mentioned the other day that, he had a chance to work with him last week during the tournament on set. And that's one of the frustrating things about this guy, Artie, is that he's Jekyll and Hyde, and I don't think too much has been reported about that just yet. The fact that, he's this monster not only during practices but during games, saying outlandish things on many occasions in post-game press conferences as well, throwing guys under the bus after tough losses. And yet, in between all that, he's Mr. Personality. I know that with the media, he's very accessible. He's very flexible about when you come to practice. He's, good in terms of providing a quote or a soundbite. He talks and talks and talks and, fills those notepads, as they say. And he also, let's remember, usually, if not always, had open practices,
right,
which adds to the curious nature of this, I think, because when you're carrying on in the way that he was, and you're doing it in front of what literally could be anyone sitting there watching, you have to wonder what's going through his mind, not just in terms of behaving that way, but in terms of feeling that it's okay to do it in an environment that's wide open. But if you'd like, before we go any further, I can give you a quick rundown as to what's transpired since we spoke last night.
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So basically, it all began with a statement being released by Athletic Director Tim Pernetti this morning saying that Mike Rice was fired. No surprise there. Speaking briefly in front of his home in Central Jersey, Rice came out before a couple of TV crews and kind of made an impromptu apology, admitting he has no explanation or excuse for his actions. Then in his statement, Athletic Director Tim Pernetti, who of course you guys know very well, admitted making the wrong decision in not firing Rice, and he said in that statement that he'd now like to move forward and try to regain everyone's trust. Governor Christie then comes out in support of the Rice firing, which you'll recall he called for yesterday.
Right.
And despite many fans and media types calling for Pernetti's job over the last 24 hours or so, ESPN today, quoting a Rutgers board member, is saying it appears that Tim will stay on. Now, there's another element to this, well, a few. One is WFAN's Boomer and Carton show reported this morning that former Rutgers basketball director of operations Eric Murdoch, who, as you know, first released the Rice tape, allegedly tried getting RU to pay him $1 million to not release the tape.
Wow.
And the Boomer and Carton report suggests that Pernetti may have engaged in negotiations with Murdoch to the point where he may have made him a lower offer that may have been turned down.
Wow.
So
my God.
That's a lot to swallow in just a day's time, huh?
That's unbelievable. So you're adding an insane criminal element to the whole thing. You're talking about blackmail, and blackmail on that level, if you're up to $1 million, you're talking about that could be 10 years.
Sure. Now, I can tell you that trying to track people down today for News 12 New Jersey, I'll give you a little quick glimpse into my day. I was asked to go out and try to find some former players, and I got to tell you, it was much harder than I anticipated, and I was hoping even just to maybe, if nothing else, get some guys that had played even before the Rice era, maybe some guys from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and everybody was very reluctant for different reasons. They all were willing to kill Rice off the record, but didn't want to do it on. And the one exception was I managed, fortunately, to get a hold of Wally Dixon, who you may remember the name, Artie, because he was from Linden originally, not too far from where you grew up. He was a kind of a real athletic, could jump out of the building type small forward. I believe like a top 30 recruit, early 90s out of Linden. Had an underwhelming career at Rutgers, but still kind of bleeds scarlet. And actually, it's funny, I tracked him down on the phone at Disney World.
Wow.
He was vacationing with his parents. I figured while he's waiting in those long lines, let me get a quote or two from him over the phone. But I did go to Eric Murdoch's house in Bridgewater, as I'm sure many other TV crews did today, and found a relative walking the dog out back who quickly said to me, he's not here and I'm not interested.
Wow.
But the other element about this is that, today another thing that kind of became an issue, and it's still an undecided issue, and it involves your boy Tim Pernetti, and that is this. The fact that yesterday during various interviews, Tim told Mike Francesa on FAN, for instance, when asked if President Robert Barchi of Rutgers had seen this tape at the same time that Tim originally had back in December, he absolutely said yes. But this morning, Barchi, the president, first released a brief statement in which it was a little unclear, but he seemed to be indicating that he had first seen the tape yesterday. Then he came out later today with a longer, much more detailed statement in which there doesn't seem to be any doubt that he is claiming to have seen the tape for the first time yesterday. So that raises two questions. One, why is Tim saying that the president saw the tape at the same time he did in December when Tim says the president supported his decision to not fire Rice? Mm-hmm. And the second question is, if in fact Barchi is telling the truth, and of course I don't know who is, that he didn't see the tape for the first time until yesterday, well then the question is, hey President, if you supported your AD's decision to not fire the guy after this outlandish behavior, didn't you at least want to see the tape that was behind,
of course,
supplying the evidence? So there are a lot of questions and a lot of unanswered questions at this point. And, people are already speculating as to who the next coach might be. Danny Hurley's name has already surfaced, and rightfully so, because he'd be perfect. But, and we could talk more about that in a second if you'd like, because I know Danny. But, I think before Rutgers can try to approach a coach seriously, and in turn before any coach can entertain an offer seriously, Rutgers has some straightening out of their own backyard to do with some of these internal issues,
Right. I mean, first of all, great job. That's great reporting. That's a lot of stuff. You're right. And here's my question. Now, did Barchi know that a tape existed before yesterday, or did he just not see it? In other words, you're saying he didn't see it till yesterday. Before yesterday, did he know a tape existed even?
I'd have to take another look at his longer statement today, but if I'm not mistaken, I think he said in one of those statements, probably the second longer one, that he was aware that a tape existed, but actually I'm not positive on that. I'll be honest with you. I'd have to take another look. But again, I think the main issue is that he's claiming he didn't see it, and I think we'd have to presume, Artie, regardless of what he's saying, he had to know a tape existed, because if Pernetti knew that a tape existed and had to get his approval to not fire him and to sign off on the penalty that he was given,
right?
I mean, how could he not know?
Right. No, I understand. I'm just saying, I'm trying to just make sure his bases are completely clear. In other words, because I mean, look, if he knew a tape existed as the head guy there, as the president, it's absolutely a problem on his end by not demanding to see it, So in other words, what you're saying is Pernetti's actions at first by going along with the suspension and everything was based on a tape, and Barchi knew that.
Right.
Right. So Barchi had to know there was a tape. So at that point, you're right. For him not to ask to see that tape that he's basing this punishment on is him not doing his job, you know. And so as far as I'm concerned, and again, I'm a friend of Tim Pernetti's and I'm a big fan of what he did. Everything up until the blackmail situation that Tim may or may not be involved with, to me, is a judgment call on Tim's part. And I think you don't fire Tim Pernetti based on that judgment call alone. Now, if the blackmail stuff is true and he's negotiating with people who are getting involved with extortion of the college, then you have to revisit the whole thing. That's a completely different story. I mean, that's a crime. Again, there's no confirmation. That's right now just a rumor that Pernetti had something to do with that, right?
Right, and I can tell you that I tried hard to, in my other life, I also do updates at FAN, and I know Craig Carton and did try to get in touch with him today and left a few messages, but he didn't get back to me, and I don't know why, but it could very well be that Craig, because he, may have some pertinent information, he could have been on the phone with the governor for all I know.
Yeah, no, I know Craig as well, and he's great at what he does. He's a good reporter, and I'm sure he's basing it on solid stuff. But again, even he said that it's nothing. There's no definite accusation that it's a fact that Pernetti negotiated with Murdoch. Now, is it a definite fact that Murdoch tried to extort money, or that's even just a rumor?
No, I think even that is unfounded at this point. I know that the story was broken, I believe, on the Boomer and Carton show, and then another source actually had confirmed it, but it was still really just hearsay. And so, I don't think there's any reason to put anything concrete on that just yet. I think one thing to note here, too, is the fact that I spoke with one division head coach today and asked him, well, what do you think of this situation in terms of, looking at it through the eyes of if you were a potential candidate? And this person said to me, well, I'd want to work with Tim Pernetti because to me it's just one misstep, and he seems like a guy that I could work with regardless of that misstep because of his record. He said, this coach did, that he'd be more interested in finding out what the future of the president's going to be, because when you're, being considered and you're in turn considering a job at this level, Artie, inevitably the guy, you may answer directly to the AD, but inevitably you're working for the president.
Sure.
And especially after a mess like this, this coach said to me, I would need to talk with not so much Pernetti, with the president, whoever that president may be. And, of course, President Barchi's future, for all we know, could very well be in doubt as we speak. And this coach basically felt that it would be more important to find out, A, who the president is going to be, and B, how that president intended to, try to address cleaning up this mess and moving forward, because the sad thing about this, well, there's a lot of sad things, of course, but one is that as Rutgers gets set to move soon into the Big Ten Conference,
right?
All of a sudden, what was considered a very attractive program to that league, obviously, they decided to take them on despite the fact that they've not been successful in basketball for about 20 years. Suddenly, it's a program with a big black eye.
Yeah.
You even wonder, Artie, I think, as Rutgers eventually will, of course, have to fill the coaching position, you wonder how much influence the Big Ten might try to exert, because they're almost a partner here going forward. They're going to pay Rutgers a lot of money, over $20 million a year, I believe. And, in terms of, TV revenue and such. And so I wonder how much influence they may try to exert in the hiring of the next coach, even if only informally. And you wonder now if Rutgers, in turn, when they do settle on trying to start a coaching search, will they consider the same guys that they would have considered, let's say, a year or two ago? Or might they now, because the slate is clean and Rice is gone, might they want to go from maybe a Northeastern-type coach with roots in the metropolitan area in Jersey? Might they switch from that to looking for a guy who's got connections and recruiting juice in the markets of the Big Ten, because obviously that's a whole other part of the country that, Rutgers is going to have to compete in now.
Yeah, no, the coaching part of it and who they're going to now hire, that's a whole different issue, a real important issue. But my assessment, and tell me if you think I'm way off on this, and then I'm going to let my co-host John Ritchie has a quick question for you. But my assessment is, in defense of Pernetti, everything up until the blackmail situation, which is just a crazy element to this story. I'd like to believe that's not true on any level. But up until that, to me, Pernetti did everything he was supposed to do. And the blame would go on Barchi. In other words, if Pernetti goes to Barchi and says to him, listen, I'm suspending our coach, not an easy or small decision, based on a lot of things, but mostly centered around this tape. If Pernetti says that to the president, and the president then okays it without asking to see the tape, to me, that's him dropping the ball. And Pernetti, to me, doing everything he's supposed to do. He knew about a tape. He took it to his higher-ups. He made a suggestion, which could have been an error in judgment, but people in that position make, errors in judgment all the time. Compared to the positive things Pernetti's done for that program, it's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. But to me, Pernetti presented all the information to Barchi, and Barchi okayed it without asking to see the tape, and Pernetti moved on, and then it blew up in their face. But to me, it's on Barchi there. It really is. Now, if the blackmail part of it is true, and Tim was involved with that, that's a whole other ball of wax. It's gonna be crazy.